It's nice when you can get along with your kids. That's wonderful. It's peaceful. It's enjoyable. It's pleasant. But power, intimacy, real deep connection only happens out of conflict.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Not By Chance podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Emil Harker. He's a friend of mine and a professional in the field, marriage and family therapist here in Utah. And he's got a lot of experience. We were just actually talking about some of the early beginnings of his career, and it sounds like quite the adventure.
Yeah, got a lot of things.
So some of that, let me mention a few more things as far as your background. I think this is true. Emil's worked everywhere, from hospital crisis units, inpatient, child, adolescent, and adult behavioral units, residential treatment centers, and even wilderness therapy, giving him a very unique window into what families go through when a teen is struggling. And I think that's really kind of one of the big parts of your mission in your career is to work on the front lines of family transformation, really trying to help families. And I think we definitely have that in common. He's a creator of rtcparents.com. It's a training and support program that helps parents reduce conflict, stay emotionally grounded, and become powerful allies in their child's treatment process. Today, we're going to be talking with Emil about conflict inside families and child-parent conflict. And before we hop into that, I'd like you to just give a kind of a Reader's Digest version of what ultimately led you to focusing in on the family and understanding conflict and wanting to help that relationship.
I'll give you the long story as short as I can.
Okay.
Right? I grew up with 8 brothers. And so I loved
No
family
sisters?
stuff. No sister. My mom and dad
Okay.
kept trying, though. You know, you got to give them credit
That's
for
why
trying.
you get 8.
That's why we got 8. And so I loved family relationships were super important to me. However, once I got married, I realized I had a serious problem that I didn't have a clue of. I was the guy that was really nice guy and blah, 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 and dating. But when you're married, all of a sudden all your insecurities come out and misunderstandings would come out. And I was a wreck. I didn't know how to communicate to save my life. I thought if you're a reasonable person and logical, you can work anything out. I found out that is not how it really works. There's so much more to that. And about that same time, I got accepted into the family therapy program at Utah State.
Okay.
And so I became my own client, so to speak. Like I'm trying to figure things out myself.
Mm.
And what I found was in the therapy training program, they don't do a lot of training on specific strategies, tactics to deal with conflict. It's more theories, principles, which are great. But when you're in that moment, you need a tactic, you need a strategy, you need a tool that you can refer to, because when I'm in that situation, my ability to maintain my composure starts to slip through my fingers. And I found, guess what? Everybody else is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't get trained on how to deal with conflict. We're told to be nice, be patient, be kind, until it goes sideways, and then it falls apart really fast. And then you have a lot of, collateral damage in the relationship. And so parents don't graduate, now that I have kids, I've learned how to communicate. No, we don't. And so we pass this problem on to our kids. And so I decided that I couldn't, since I couldn't find it in any of the training I was getting, I had to find something that was going to help me. And then once it worked for me, then I would help my clients.
So were you married while you were in your master's program?
Yes, right off the bat. So I'm like...
So you were in the middle of this new relationship. And
new relationship. And yeah, I just got married just before I started my master's program.
I see.
And so I'm going totally blind, not even realizing how blind I was.
She's probably fortunate you were in a marriage and family therapy program.
I think she's grateful for it at times until we have these conversations and she's like, wait a minute. is this therapy stuff you're doing? And so I think sometimes she wishes I was a massage therapist rather than a marriage therapist, because then she'd be asking me all the time, hey, can you do your professional work on me? But as a marriage therapist, not as much.
You know what's kind of interesting about that? I sort of went the other way as far as I believe in therapy. I believe there's a lot of power in it. But I didn't want my family feeling like I was playing therapist all the time. So sometimes my wife will say, hey, can you put your therapist hat on? Go ahead and do that. Like she's essentially saying, I want you to use skills right now.
Yes.
Not just what comes natural.
Right. Yeah. And you can see how at times it's highly valuable, right?
Yeah.
And I like to leave my therapy hat off as often as possible, because I think it's kind of annoying when you're hanging out with your friends, and like I know some people who are therapists and they never take their therapy hat off.
Right.
And you're like going, relax, I'm not paying you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just be friends here.
Yeah, let's just be homies. We can be nice and support each other. We don't have to analyze every little thing we do.
But it is hard, isn't it? I mean, once you've sort of been trained in like family systems, and marriage and family therapy that's one of the core models of the thinking is family systems. And I'm always looking at what's going on between people.
Yeah.
Do you do that?
Oh, totally.
Yes, you look at the individual, but a lot of times it's like I'm watching what's happening in between.
Yes.
I almost can't stop that.
For me, as long as I'm doing therapy, I'm really dialed in. When I'm not, I try not to. I had a really great therapist, like a professor. Someone asked the question, well, how do you not take it home? And he said, you have to start right now before you develop the habit of really caring. You're not helping if you're constantly doing the therapy outside of doing therapy. And you're not helping your clients by worrying about them. So I started learning it right off the bat, leave therapy in the chair. But you're right, like everything is relationship to me. Like the quality of our lives are relationships, right? I find myself to cope, I have to not make it a priority, because most of the world, they're not seeing things the way we see them. They're not going, how can we make the relationship better? What they're thinking is why don't people understand me? They're not looking at themselves. It's an external finger going, people don't understand me. If they would just do or be or act or think, then I'm okay. And they don't have that introspection to help them learn how to navigate the relational dynamics, because that's just not something people are ever exposed to.
Yeah, I'm excited about today because I think a lot of people are hungering for real tools.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're going to tell us about in a minute. I want to kind of set the stage for our audience a little bit. Many of the parents who watch the podcast, listen to the podcast, they're parents who have teens in treatment. And you're well aware of their world and what they're going through. So that's who we're kind of mainly talking to. But everything we're going to talk about also applies to just, parent and a teen at home. In fact, one of the things that I would say is that if you look at the broad spectrum of diagnoses and behaviors and choices and so forth that teens make that ultimately end up causing the need for treatment, what will come along with that is parent-child conflict. There's almost nothing that happens when a teen is spiraling that you ultimately don't have parent and teen conflict. And so the spiraling, I mean, for a second, if you would, Emil, where you talk about why is that the case?
Oh my gosh. You have highly concerned parents that are not trained, right? They're not, I didn't get training as a parent, right? No one said, hey, now that you have a kid, let me walk you through how to deal with your kids all the way up until they're 18. We don't have training. So we have high levels of care. We also have a lot of baggage in the way we think about things. I know one of my baggages was respect. Respect was drilled into me as a kid, but respect was drilled into me a kid through physical punishment when I was a kid, right? Well, we don't do that anymore. And plus our kids are pretty spoiled. And so the idea that they should somehow respect us because we're their elders is actually a crazy concept. And so now we have these ideas and beliefs that are completely unfounded. Like, why would a kid, in all reality, based on the way they grow, their psychological development, why would it make sense for them to actually respect us the way we think about respect? It makes no sense at all. We're using our own paradigm from how we grew up. They have a completely different experience. How many of these kids even have to make their beds? So respect is a concept that we've projected onto them. So we're creating problems without knowing it.
Are you saying, now I don't think you're saying this, but somebody out there might be saying, are you saying that we shouldn't expect our kids to respect us?
You know what? I am actually saying that.
Are you? Okay, explain that.
Okay.
Because I might disagree.
You should, yeah. So I'm on the plane with my son, and I'm having a conversation with him. He's a teenager at this time. I go, help me understand. Like, I feel like there's so much disrespect in our relationship. Like, I just don't feel like you respect me at all. He says, I think what you mean is deference, Dad. You want me to pay deference to you. And he's looking at me like, goes, how and why should I have learned, and how have you taught me to respect you? Oh, I felt like this spotlight of total heat was on me, because how many times did I not follow through with a consequence because I didn't want to do it, right? How many times did I promise something I didn't follow through with just to encourage him? So there's so many ways I am failing as a father, and yet I'm expecting respect from him. I didn't earn it. I don't deserve it. So what I was really saying was, I want you to pay deference to me as an older person with more experience. Value that. And in all honesty, how could he value that?
So what, if I got it right then, so what you're really saying is deserve it and expect it.
If you deserve it,
you should be able to expect it. And the reality is none of us are perfect parents.
That's right.
So there's going to be, we got to realize that and know that we're going to need forgiveness of those things that we do wrong.
And do we as parents do that though? What I find, parents are not the ones that take responsibility. They don't. They don't take the accountability. How many times have I heard a parent, maybe you've heard the same thing, well, I'm the parent. A teenager doesn't say, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and there's kind of this continuum. It's not all parents on there, right? And in fact, I'd say the way you see the world is kind of old school, the way you were raised, the way I was raised, old school. And so we've had to kind of learn the other thing, the other side. But there's a lot of parents these days that don't expect respectful behavior, that actually, I'd say they get walked on like crazy. Right?
They become so permissive and conflict averse that they end up feeding the very beast they're trying to medicate, save, rescue. And then that creates a lot of internal anguish. And so then you have, back to the why is this happening, is we don't know how to manage those moments of our own emotions. We don't know what to truly be able to expect. Like I was expecting respect, and I wasn't comprehending how I was actually sabotaging it. Mm-hmm. And so I was floundering. And so being able to use tools to navigate conflict without having to be right, without having to be perfect, without having to, which doesn't work anyway, demand respect. Like if you go to your son and you say, you need to respect me. I have never seen a kid say, you're probably right. They don't. They come up with excuses. And even if they don't have excuses, they'll make something up if they need to, because they're not ready to take accountability yet. So we needed tools to be able to navigate being a human being as a parent that's filled with flaws, and not have that limit our ability to have influence. And I'm going to say power, not the power like force, but
right.
We have responsibilities as parents to make choices that will impact our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to lead to conflict.
If you're tired of having power struggles with your teen over freedoms and privileges, put the ball in their court and have them create a plan for how they're going to earn back that freedom. We've got a tool for you. It's free. You can find it at trustandfreedom.trusty.com. You can find that in the description below. Right? I think one of the patterns I see an awful lot, and it is never really defining respectful behavior, kind of expecting it without really defining it, and maybe without modeling it.
That was my problem.
Yeah, and I've done it myself, and so there's that, and so then you lose all influence. But when you try to get the influence back, without the tools, without the skills, basically what you end up with is conflict.
That's right.
So I think that's kind of the beginning. Like, that's why a lot of them never attempt to really require respectful behavior, because they know it's going to be conflict, right? And they don't know how to do it.
Right.
So, yeah, I think this is where we're coming to this point where, no matter what it is that your child's struggling with, because of, like what you said, you're emotionally tied in, you love them, you care about them, you're seeing them struggle, whether it be depression, anxiety, self-esteem issues, whatever.
Substance abuse. You name, there's a whole list, right?
The whole list. And then on the side, it'll say parent-child conflict.
You could almost like create a bracket that says all of those are going to lead to parent-child conflict.
Parent-child conflict, that's right. And it's for all the reasons you said. And I guess the one, in my mind, one of the ways parents gain this influence to be able to help their child with whatever it is across the board, they have to deal with that parent-child conflict and change the relationship to problem solving, change the relationship they have with addressing issues. And boy, this can get complex because of all the emotions, and because you might have a co-parent that doesn't think that this particular issue rises to the level of we need to problem solve about it. We need to, so you got one saying this is not as big a deal as you think it is. And that makes conflict here between two parents. And so we're talking about skills that could be used parent to parent, parent to child, right?
Right. And sometimes we have even more, like you got two parents that are split up now.
Yeah.
So now you got another set of people that are involved,
right.
And they have different opinions, right?
Yeah. And they're whispering in the ear of the biological parent, right?
We have conflict casserole in every layer. It's all flavored with tension that's the result of expectations that are not in alignment.
I like that idea, conflict casserole.
Because it's going to happen. Serve it up in big scoops.
I can visualize that. All right, so let's start kind of ground zero with your model, because I think you've got some real practical tips. What's like the top three things that you would say, or if you want to go step by step, teach us about how to approach this parent-child conflict?
So I have this program, the rtcparents.com program, and it's really to help parents maximize their influence with their kids. Because oftentimes we hear, you can't control anyone but yourself. By the way, I think that's even pretty much of a stretch. How many people really can control themselves? But by disciplining ourselves to some principles that you and I both are familiar with, when we discipline ourselves, there are natural laws and there are natural consequences from those things that we do. And so by focusing on maximizing our influence, I think it's a different language that we can use so that we're not going, oh, I don't have any control, so I can't do anything. No, we're going to have influence. We can devote ourselves to some principles and strategies that can maximize that influence. and also increase the quality of our lives in the same process. So when I do my training program, I start with some nuts and bolts right off the bat because, I used to have it so it was like lesson 7, lesson 8, out of like 10 lessons. Now you're going to learn how to do the communication. And by then they're like, man, I could have used this like 10 weeks ago.
This is foundational. Yeah.
So I actually start off right off the bat with the communication tools for when it goes sideways, because it's going to go sideways. So the first one I talk about is how to deal with conflict when it's coming at you. They're making criticisms. They're asking questions. They're making declarations and commands. I have 4 types of statements. That's all there are. And so I teach people how to categorize those statements.
And they see it's coming at me. I'm going to use this.
And they've heard this. These parents, they can tell. I think most parents can actually script out what the kid says word for word.
Word for word.
Right?
Yeah.
But we can do that, but we don't train for it.
And what that is a bait. That's a hook.
You got
like, I'm going to get you.
That's and we're like going, and they still use it because sometimes it works, right?
It usually works, yeah.
Right. So we go, well, if we know we're going to get them saying something like, you don't even care if I make it or not. You want me to fail. You suck as a parent.
Yeah.
You're not perfect.
No other parent in the world would do this.
So there are statements that start with the word you, and those are criticisms. And so I teach them, hey, look, listen for those statements that are criticisms. So I teach them how to deal with the attack, maintain their composure, and actually create closeness from it. A lot of programs will say, keep your composure, don't let them affect you, stay stoic, immovable. That's a win. And I'm going, no.
So I'm really curious about this.
Okay.
So someone's attacking you with a verbal attack.
Yes. Okay.
And somehow it's going to get us closer.
We're going to get great closeness. So here's a real situation. The teenager says, you don't want me to succeed. Okay. Now the rule of responding to a criticism is to agree with the element of truth, nothing more, nothing less. That's the rule. If there's zero truth, you have to ask, what do you mean? Or why would you say that? Okay. So he says, you want me to fail. You don't want me to succeed. Or you don't care about me. I don't know. There's so many different you statements. But he says, you don't want me to succeed, or you don't care about me. Let's do you don't care about me. That's 0% true, right? Every parent is sacrificing a ton to be able to support their kid.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't care about me. 0% true. What do you mean, son? Why would you say that? So now the kid says something like,
because you won't let me do anything
I
want to do.
Yeah, you're not giving me freedom.
Yeah.
Now there's some truth to there. That's right. There's a lot of freedoms that you want that I'm not giving you. Agree with the element of truth, nothing more, nothing less. That's it. How many parents sneak into explaining it then? They explain it. The kids aren't listening, right? There isn't a connection yet to create a correction.
Mm-hmm.
Connect before you correct. So I say, yeah, I could totally see why you'd be upset because, I don't let you have the freedom. I don't let you go to your friend's house or stay out late and all those kinds of things. And that's, you're right. And then I'd sit there and then think about what would the teenager say?
Well,
that's stupid, or nobody else does that, right? Now that's a different kind of statement. It's not a criticism anymore. It's a declaration. The rule for a declaration, so let me give you the 4 statements and then we'll role play this to see. So a criticism is a statement that starts with the word you.
Mm-hmm.
Every statement feels like an attack. So we don't say attack, not attack. They all feel like an attack. But a criticism is a statement that says you first. You this, you that. When it starts with the word you, it actually tells me what part of their brain I need to speak to. They need objective validation, concrete, logical validation. That's what their brains need. If they ask a question, it's because they're confused, okay? Sometimes the questions aren't real questions. That's a rhetorical question or a loaded question. But if it's a real question, it's because they're confused. And that's a good place for them to be because they're more receptive to information. The third type of statement is a declaration. A declaration is about the person speaking or the situation. Well, that doesn't make any sense. No one else is like that. That's not what I said. This is ridiculous. I don't care anymore. Those are all statements about me or the situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fourth one. It's a command, but you don't really have to worry about the fourth one. The fourth one is like, leave me alone, shut the door, kiss my butt. It's just an order or a directive. There's only four. So if we know there's only four, and we really only have to worry about three. Does it start with the word you? Is it a request for information, or is it something else? If it's a criticism, and this is not normal, and it is not easy, we lean into validating the part that's true as much as we can. Don't lean back, because it'll take 10 times too long. Lean in. You don't care about me. Why would you say that? Because you don't let me have freedom. That is true. I don't give you as much freedom as you want. I don't let you hang out with your friends, at least some friends. I don't let you go out and just hang out as late as you want. I don't let you decide, a lot of things. That's true. And now the kid,
they've got some validation.
They're getting validation, and you're not giving them more to fight. So they have to kind of think on their feet and go, well, that's baloney. That's bullcrap.
Yeah, it's kind of like if I had a rubber ball and I'm going to throw it against a cement wall, I'm going to get that return. Right. But this parent in this case is not a cement wall. No. It's like a pillow.
That's right. And it falls dead.
Hey, I didn't get it.
So they got to go pick it up.
I don't know what to do with that.
That's right. So they got to go pick it up or find a new ball.
Yeah.
So when they make a declaration like, well, that's baloney. That's crap. That's ridiculous. No other parent on the planet is like you guys. So when we get a declaration, this is the emotional validation. So we've got logical validation, and then we have emotional validation. I'm just going to understand their feeling. So I think, well, what's it like for the kid? His friends, their parents probably don't care as much. They're probably not as, and even if there are some, most of the kids probably aren't being supervised much. And so he probably feels like it's really unfair. He probably feels like I'm a little bit hovering, I'm controlling. So I'd say, that probably feels really frustrating to you because you know what? You probably don't have any of your friends whose parents are like riding them, like I'm riding you. And you're probably like frustrated with it because it seems like you're getting picked on by mom and dad. And our expectations seem really unreasonable to you, especially when everybody else isn't having the same expectations from their parents, right?
I see the connection. Now we're starting to connect, right?
Now, I'm not agreeing with them.
No, but you can
But I'm
put yourself
going
in their
to
shoes
lean in because as soon as that connection happens, which is super cool, they can't decide not to feel it.
Yeah.
When people are validated and understood, oxytocin is released. A bonding moment happens. And usually it's so awkward for the teenager. They don't know what to say. They just sit there and go, well, yeah.
I can imagine parents listening to this, just light bulbs going off, and them recognizing the contrast with what you just demonstrated and what their normal approach is. And some of the things that it seems like it's required to do what you said, first of all, if you have the model in your head, that's really good.
Right.
If you know the four things and that's about validation and validating what part of it's true, and then there's an emotional validation opportunity.
Right.
It's like this cognitive part of the brain is in charge. The executive functioning of the parent, the thoughtful, I've got a plan, I'm going to carry it out, I've got vision of where I want to go with this.
Yeah.
That's in charge. It's not the emotion.
Right.
And so that's what I just want to highlight. Part of it is a knowledge.
Yeah. You have to know it.
And you have to know yourself.
You have to know yourself. So let's say, if I can understand that there are only 4 types of statements that kid can make, and I know his top 5 or 10 biggest complaints, okay? I know what they are. When I'm in that zone, if I don't prepare for that, I'm setting myself up for falling apart and literally giving my son or daughter more and more excuses and reasons to not respect me because I fall apart. I do the one thing that sabotages the relationship by either escalating, well, I'm the dad, that's how it's going to be, or I'm the mom, and you need to listen to me. And then they explain themselves. Never have I had a kid say, gosh, when you say it like that, it just makes a lot more sense.
It really hits home. Yeah.
Mom, you must really care for me.
Yeah. Well, with this paradigm that you're sharing, it really makes your first early statements in the podcast make sense. You know, what you just demonstrated is expecting respect from someone and not being a respectful person yourself, not listening with empathy and respect, not understanding the other person's feelings, not being the adult in the room. Right? So now, absolutely would agree with you all the way through.
And so but here's the cool thing. I don't have to be perfect to have respect anymore. No. I have to be disciplined to care enough to listen and hear, because that's the juice of respect.
Yeah. The thing that's so exciting about this in my mind is that's something every parent out there could do. And it's this immediate deposit in the emotional bank account to the teen. The trust goes up. Mm-hmm. It's all of a sudden, it was at ground zero for the teen and the parent, and both directions. And now the parent steps up into a higher plane with knowledge and caring and skill, and demonstrates that that's someone I can trust. That's, wow, my old paradigm is I'm starting to wonder about the way.
It gets shocked.
And it goes quick.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you had 5 years of terrible relationship. I've seen in front of my eyes, I'm recording this with this intensive parent-kid training, right? We're up in my office and they're having a conversation and the dad just stops from his normal pushback and goes, you know what? You're right. I haven't been as good of a dad as I should have been. I have added to this problem way more than I realize. And then it kind of goes silent for a second. And this is what the kid said. And as soon as the kid said this, the dad looked at me like, what kind of voodoo magic is this? The kid said, well, it isn't all you, Dad. I got a part in it.
Yeah.
He looks at me and goes, I have never heard my kid say anything like that.
Right.
But that's what happens when you just own it without trying to push an agenda.
I love it.
If you make the agenda the connection, the correction starts to happen. And you don't have to push the correction part. And I know your book says that. So if you haven't read his book, you've got to read his book. And if you've been watching this podcast, you have to read his book.
Well, I don't want to let this go. This is your book. And this is probably the one you need to read. You can turn conflict into closeness. And, you know, he's demonstrated this tonight here, and I believe it. 7 communication skills of successful marriages. And by the way, I'm sure it applies to kids.
I do that now.
Kids.
And you know that my other book is for business. I have a confidence in conflict program I do for corporate training because the principles, they just work. Now, one of the things that people will do is go, well, Emil, that's a great tool. How does it resolve anything? It doesn't resolve the topic. It resolves the problem of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And if we keep thinking that we need to solve the topic problem, we will miss the most important piece, and that's the relationship.
Yeah.
Once the relationship is dialed in, the problem resolution becomes easier. And yes, there are tools and skills and strategies to do that, but I see way too often people try to solve the topic thinking that it'll take away the problem.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
I want to overlay what you've said with something that I think is instructive. In family systems theory, it is you're always looking at cycles and circles instead of linear cause and effect. You're looking at A influences B, so parent influences child, child influences parent, and they get into a cycle, a repetitive cycle that begins to have a life of its own. Mm-hmm. It's so compelling to both parties that they have a hard time changing their part of the cycle. And it gets deeper and worse and more negative over time, and to the point where they often do need professional help to get out of it.
Because they can't see it.
Because they can't see it, and they don't have maybe the skills, the support, whatever it is, to do something different. One of the things that in this example you've just shared, what happened is you're saying, I'm going to see the parent as the customer for change. In this cycle that's going around, I'm gonna talk to the parent here, off to the side, maybe coach them on Zoom or through your book or however we might do it. And we know that if parent A is the customer for change, and they have the light bulbs going off like we've talked about, and just them changing will immediately invite a new kind of dynamic between them and their teenager. And we've both seen this, hundreds of times, if not thousands. And I was just working with a couple the last few weeks, and to me, it's because I see the dynamic, and I kind of look for who is the customer for change, and if possible, if they're both there to change, I love that. But sometimes it's just one of the two, and you have to kind of gauge this. It's nuanced. It's almost like, okay, I'm gonna push you over here. I see you might be willing to accept some correction, some information, to look in the mirror and say, wow, I have been screwing this up. And you can start to make that little change. And you do that over here if you're a marriage therapist.
Right.
And then you see the dynamic change a little bit. And then so that you don't alienate the husband or the wife, whoever it is, you go over here and you push them a little bit. And it has been so fun to watch this because they've had failure after failure after failure in therapy. And what it come down to is very similar to what you just talked about, is changing that cycle, the way they communicate about the problems, actually being affected by each other, having the empathy, and it melted the ice. And it's just been fun again because there was a little while I wasn't seeing a client. And so when I got them, it was just exciting again to walk in, and, I'd come back from the session, and my wife, she knows I'm seeing a client, and she always asks me on a scale 1 to 10, how'd it go? And because they both were ready to change, even though they were stuck in this awful cycle, it was like a 10 every time. And so even if you're a lone parent, if you're the adult in the room, whether that be with your child or your co-parent, there's power in you. And I know sometimes it's like, why do I always have to be the one? Why do I have to? That pride gets in the way, or we see the other's fault so much that's like, no, it's all their fault. But I love this because I think all of us could see exactly how the conflict could actually lead to connection.
Right.
There was some research done by, I think the University of Utah did this, research on, and this is kind of a parallel but in a totally different way. It was on if you're a therapist and you're giving therapy to a couple, let's say, or an individual, and if it's not going well, if it's not really helping them, mm-hmm. the best thing you could do is ask for feedback and fix it and adjust. And by making that adjustment, the therapeutic alliance is actually stronger because there was a flaw in it in the first place. It was not working well, but one party, in this case the therapist, says, hey, give me feedback and let me see how I can do this better.
And they
fix it.
The very act of asking for feedback.
Yeah. So
changes
now
the dynamic.
The alliance is higher than it ever would have been if they'd have been doing well in the first place. So in that case, it's like something down here led to a higher
That's right.
this, and the same with conflict with the teen
exactly.
can lead to a higher connection.
It's nice when you can get along with your kids. That's wonderful. It's peaceful. It's enjoyable. It's pleasant. But power, intimacy, real deep connection only happens out of conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all the more reason to make handling conflict a priority, because it's going to happen. Hoping it doesn't happen is a terrible plan. Since it's going to happen, take the time to invest in preparing for it, train for it. There's processes to train. And then when you finally are in that moment of conflict and you get to use those skills, you get to do it, and then you get to feel the outcome, you're like, oh my gosh, I should have done this 10 years ago.
Yeah. Maybe I'll end with a kind of a fun story that happened this weekend. And Talmage, our podcast manager, my son, was there. But we had an opportunity to go to the farm and help my dad, who's 85 years old, put more tin on the shed and put water lines in so they don't freeze and cover the hay before winter, all these things that you got to do on the farm. And my kids, growing up, I've got 4 sons and a daughter. They could say the one thing Dad gave us, if anything, is a work ethic. And I got that from my dad, and he got it from his dad, and so on. But I have to say that I haven't always been skilled and emotionally aware while I'm in the work mode. Like when I'm working and doing a job, in fact, they were kind of teasing. They're all adults now. And at one point they're like, Halston, run, because they're mocking, not mocking, but they're basically saying, this is what Dad would do, run. And because that was how I was trained, and I was training my boys the same way. And at one point I'm talking to my adult, now young men that are amazing, but I'm talking down to them a little bit because now we're at work and I know more about what to do. And I caught myself and I said, hey, I'm sorry about that. You probably know exactly what to do. And because they're mature, the son said, oh no, Dad, that's fine. That's fine.
Beautiful moment.
It was beautiful.
Because the thing about it, if you wouldn't have said that, they wouldn't have said it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's because you said it, you got more grace.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the grace.
Oh, you're going to make me all weepy now. I know. Gosh, I don't know how you pull this off.
Let's see if I can make you really shed a tear, because there was one more thing that happened.
I'll pull myself together.
Afterwards, I wasn't barking orders, but the reason I was giving orders was because we were splitting up into 2 groups, and I was going to go over here and do something else and leave them to do this thing that I wanted to instruct them on. And so then this happened, and then I leave with a couple of my sons. And I guess one of my other sons asked his older brother, how'd that feel when Dad, was telling you what to do? And my son got teary. He said, it's okay. He told me later, he said he started to tear up. I mean, because at this point, the forgiveness seems to have been there. They're forgiving me. And in some ways it's nostalgic, because we're now together as adults, treating each other more like adults, and just loving being in each other's presence. And it was just this sweet thing. In the past, there's been conflict around it. And they could tell you stories. and this completely different experience now. And I guess maybe that's a little hope for all of us parents out there, that our kids do grow up, and they will forgive us, especially if we are seeking that and seeking to improve ourselves.
Yeah.
But you've given us all a really big gift here. With
Thanks for having
the way
me.
you've described this model. Really recommend your book to our readers. Is there how else can they get a hold of you and connect with you?
If your son or daughter is in a treatment program, go to rtcparents.com, Residential Treatment Center, rtcparents.com. And And if you have questions for me, just email me. I'm happy to respond. emilharker@gmail.com. I'm sure, Talmadge can put that up on
the show
somewhere.
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hopped on there, and there's tons of little videos.
My knowledge nuggets. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't even have to pay anything for that.
Yeah.
It's free.
Awesome stuff. So I highly recommend it, and appreciate what you brought to us today. Thanks so
Tim.
much, and best
Absolutely.
of luck in all you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And you too.